Hi, it's Sharon again with another edition of Top 10 Enterprise Architecture Questions. And today I'm going to bring you question number 4. What is my role as an enterprise architect? I am Sharon Evans, the architect coach from architectcoach.com. So, this has to be the biggest question I get asked. In fact, earlier this week I was asked this question and I was only able to respond with a couple of sample diagrams and text in my email as it is so large. I typically spend about an hour in my workshops and several hours or days helping organizations when I'm coaching on this topic. So, I really like to chunk this down in my book, The Zoom Factor for the Enterprise Architect, and focus on this simple diagram as a starting point. The difference between the enterprise architect and the other domain architects is your focus, and your premium really is in your soft skills. If you take a look at the diagram, the skills that range from technology or technical at the large or the larger circular ellipse, that tends to be the strength at the domain levels of the domain architects. And then as we move towards a practitioner in enterprise architecture, we must have the other skills such as consulting, politics, strategy, and leadership. And I explain those in full in my book. But what the difference is between an enterprise architect and perhaps the domain architects is that they can phrase the problems or opportunities in both business terms and at technical levels. So while they can explain it when they are speaking to the technologists, they're also very good at versing themselves when they are in a situation with higher level business people. And these are the people that are deciding on the value proposition of the solutions. The other types of folks they might be describing this to is, IT managers, the CIO. So they do have to be very good in those skills. They also have to be good in varying the presentation level, depending on that audience. So as we, move through those skills in relation to the enterprise architect, I just want to, talk a little bit more about, what your strengths might be. So if you are an architect strong in the most important soft skills, you are able to phrase that business problem and strategy at hand in business terms. You can present and you can discuss a potential solution in layman's terms. Perhaps you're speaking to other vendors or potentially, external business departments that have no idea about the technology terminology. So, you can hold a strategy meeting and agree to move forward. You'll know when you should mention certain aspects, and you will have done your homework in advance to know who's going to support, who's going to oppose you when you do get yourself in these types of business meetings as well as technology meetings. Your presentation is going to be at the appropriate level of detail for your audience, and you're going to minimize technology terms and instead focus on the value of the solution you have for business whenever you get yourselves on front of the business group. Now, the role of the architect with respect to recommending solutions to business problems, because your role is you have this premium on your soft skills, you have a broader subject knowledge and a larger diversity of experience. And so you are better able to make these kinds of recommendations. You're going to build the proficiencies from many areas of your life. You may have got some entrepreneurial experience that's going to come with your dealings in business events, such as mergers and acquisitions over time with your company or perhaps others. You'll have seen some expansions, cost-cutting measures and activities, and various other similar ideas. So you're better positioned to be making those types of recommendations. Your experience, even as you work as a volunteer, should not be overlooked. So things that you do as a board member in outside organizations, and then as well the various companies and multiple vertical domains that you might have worked on will give you that, depth that is required to act in that role of the architect. Now, the soft skills that you need to acquire acquire and excel are in the areas of facilitation, communication, cultural and political sensitivity. You're really good at facilitating others when you're trying to create a value proposition with respect to a solution that matches what the enterprise or your company's trying to do. So, it's if you think back to your earlier days, perhaps in technology, you may have gotten into several discussions about various, very detailed nuances of technology solutions or versions of different technology and products that you used. Whereas now what you're doing is you're really looking at a much higher level at strategies and as well as solutions that are the right fit for your enterprise. So finally, my point that I want to mention is that you have a role in facilitating and leading others to combine their perspectives and solutions. So while it's a common misnomer for folks to think that the role of the enterprise architect is to make the technology decisions, your role is actually to lead others to combine perspectives and to come up with the solution. Now, granted, if depending on which position you have as an enterprise architect, your responsibility might be for creating the vision of the enterprise architecture program, but it is actually a role in which you are going to facilitate the efforts and opinions of others so that you can come up with the right fit. Now, I just want to talk a little bit in combination or perspectives to other roles in the organization. If you take a look at this diagram, it's one that I map out, and it may or may not be really clear here. It's in my book, and it's quite detailed. But it talks about where the role is in the range of the various roles within the company. So the enterprise architect is really a senior role. You'll see it up on the upper right of this diagram. And where you take a look at the left or the vertical axis, the technology expert is, not to say that they're a lower level, but they will have a much higher level of technology expertise at the lower levels. And as they gain experience and they move towards higher business levels of focus along the horizontal axis, they will become able to take on the role of an enterprise architect. Big picture, vision, strategic thinking versus single solutions or project thinking. So if you take a look at all of those roles in the lower left-hand side of this diagram, the technology architect, the application architect, system architect, and even lower than that, people that are on technology support, developers, data architects or database analysts, business analysts, systems analysts, they are typically focused on single solutions. They're trying to solve a problem and not one that necessarily meets the needs of the entire enterprise. Now, I mentioned the business versus technology. As your role increases in seniority as well as skill level and the value proposition within your company, you're going to have a much higher business level versus technology level. So just want to close up your action. Really, I want to call you to do something today. Figure out where you fit in this continuum. Find your role description and review it in context to others and see if it makes sense. And if it doesn't, you might want to speak to the management or the teams without really stirring up any trouble. But just try to get a good understanding of where you are. I want to invite with you to connect with me on LinkedIn in the group Enterprise Architect Careers. I'm sharing a lot of this information in that group as well as pointing them to some other valuable information. You want more information in detail, you can see my blogs and get other career tips at my websites, either www.architectcoach.com as well as www.zoomfactorbook.com, where I describe all of this in full detail. See you at question 5.